Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our DORR breakfast. My name is Ellen Pereira. I'm the president of DORR, and we do these monthly, and they're all exciting and interesting, and you learn a lot from them. So I want to start out always by thanking Lee Haken, who is running our hybrid meeting from her home in Cottonwood as a DORR board member, and Jeff Dissinger, who is here helping with the technology, Jenny Hurst, Ben Shores out front, Linda Scott, they all make this happen. So many thanks to them. Do we have any first timers here? People who have not been to a breakfast before? Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome. Well, good to see you all. Let me just make a few announcements. We have more speakers than we usually have, but there's a lot going on. So I wanted to first mention we are supposed to turn in our numbers to the Elks Lodge for people who want to go to the dance next Friday. Next Friday at the Elks Lodge, 6 to 9, big fun. As we know, this has been a rough couple of years. We could all use some dancing and music because dancing is therapy. And we could all use therapy, and this is cheaper than actually paying therapy. Definitely recommend come to the dance. We'll have dinner, we'll have a DJ, it'll be great. So, but if you please sign up today if you can, because again, we have to get in our numbers for the dinner. People are asking me what they can do, how they can become involved. There are a couple of things right off the bat that I would like to mention. Number one, we are looking for poll observers. Those are people representing the Democratic Party who will sit inside the polls, and some people will be outside the polls, looking out for any kind of shenanigans or things that might be happening. We will give you training and let you know how to do whatever you have to do, but mainly it's just sitting there inside or outside. Inside, you can't talk to anybody. If you see your neighbors, you have to act like you're a cardboard cutout, just not talk to anybody. But we need to have people there. Allow one Democrat, one Republican inside the polls. It's interesting. It's a 2-hour gig and then you're done. But if you would like to be a poll observer, I'm going to circulate this around. And the polls, as you know, are in Village of Oak Creek is a fire district. The Lutheran Church on 179 for people who live in Coconino County, and the Elks Lodge. The primary is July 21st. The general election is November 3rd. Sign up for both or either, whatever works for you. That would be great. Second thing we would like to do is we have to get things out to our community. We have all these wonderful candidates here. We will have a slate card that DORR has prepared talking about our endorsements and where we suggest people vote. We have that kind of literature as well. We have a piece on home rule. We need volunteers in the office to help stuff packets. And then we need people to do what's called a lit drop, which is not canvassing door to door and talking to people. It is door to door, leaving the package of literature either under their mat or in the screen door or something like that. So we need people who are willing to do that and people who are willing to drive the people who are dropping the lit. Because as you know, some of our neighborhoods are kind of spread out and it's difficult in June heat to be walking. And so we try to set everybody up with a buddy, and one takes one side of the street, one takes the other. We're looking for people who can do that kind of a lit drop in early to mid-June, I would say. So one, assembling packets in the DORR office, and two, driving or doing the lit drop. And I will circulate this with a pen. And if you want to do literature drops, please do that. If you're willing to put up a lawn sign on your front lawn, you can't do that yet, but soon will come the time that you can be putting up lawn signs. Melissa Dunn has put this spreadsheet together. Sign up for this if you're willing to put a lawn sign. If you live at the very end of a cul-de-sac where nobody ever drives, don't bother. These things are not cheap. These things are not cheap, yeah.
If we're in the unincorporated, I'm in the VOC.
In the VOC, I would say probably doesn't pay to put up something for a candidate for Sedona City Council. However, home rule, I don't know, it might confuse people, but as we'll talk about later, oh yeah, and we do have lawn signs for our legislative district
Yeah.
candidates. So yeah,
And I'm on a golf course, so I have already signs up. And I get thumbs up all the time.
that's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna start this heading that way as well. Okay, so poll observers, lit droppers, letters to the editor. We have a woman who's coordinating letters to the editor. Just really, not one issue of Red Rock News or Verde Independent should go by that one of us does not have a letter to the editor in that thing. We should be there full force as much as we can. And it can be short. And if you need help with it, or if you're willing to lend your name to somebody who loves to write but can't keep submitting something every single month, let us know. Contact me, call the DORR office. By the way, our phone system is being hooked up again. Our phone system was totally out. And so if you've called and you haven't gotten a response, that's why. But thanks to Jeff Dissinger, we got new phones and they'll be up to date. Great, that's awesome. So letters to the editor. Okay, and then the last thing, tomorrow you will get an email if you are a DORR member, and I hope everybody here is a DORR member. Otherwise, you're missing out on a lot of good stuff. You will get an email tomorrow telling you about an ad that Democrats of the Red Rocks is going to place in the Red Rock News. We're going to place this before the primary because primary is really very, very important for these races, city council races, as well as home rule. So we will place ads probably twice in the Red Rock News saying we support home rule. And we want signatures, rows and rows of signatures of people who are trusted people in the community, people your neighbors know you. When they see your name, they think, oh, Cynthia signed this. This must be good. I'm okay with that, So you'll be getting that. However, the Red Rock News will not publish anyone's name unless we have written authorization from that person to publish their name. And all that is, for example, Victoria sends an email to info@Democrats of the Red Rocks, and this will all be in that letter you get, saying, my name is Victoria Rivers, and I agree to have my name appear in the home rule ad. That's all we need. We have to turn in a pile of those to the paper, and I get that because I don't know, in these days, yes, in these days, some people cheat, believe it or not. Hey, shocker, I know, it's unbelievable. Okay, today we are going to focus on local candidates. The national scene it can grab all the attention in the room, and it has grabbed all the attention in the room, and people are outraged. But what's happening locally is really, really important to all of us. I have to say that the decisions that shape our daily life, the way things happen in our community, these are decisions that are made close to home, either in Sedona or at the Board of Supervisors or at the legislature. Those are the things that affect our day-to-day life. These are the people that help secure funding for the Humane Society, the Recycling Center, the Heritage Museum, Meals on Wheels, this very community center here we're sitting in. These are things that are helped by our local government, not the feds, not the state. And so it's really important that we focus on these people. Everybody that's sitting up here, and I'll introduce them in a sec, is sitting up here because they have agreed to run for an elected office. Instead of doing the fun things that life could have for them, they have decided to campaign and to grovel for money and to incur the wrath of people in the community. Incur the wrath of people that are less than warm and fuzzy on next door neighbor and those kinds of things. And yet they're putting themselves forward, and they're doing this so that they can serve the public. they have a strong urge to help their communities. And that is really important. And so we owe a debt of gratitude to all of our candidates and our elected officials like Mayor Plug, like Councilor Kinsella. I don't know if there's others in the room here. I don't think so. But people that are in office, the people that are aspiring to be in office. What?
We were just laughing that we're also elected officials.
Well, yes, yeah, but I'm going to introduce you in a second. Elected officials. Okay, sorry. Yes. We owe them a debt of gratitude. They dedicate their time, their energy. You know, it must be all consuming. And so thank you to Councilors Melissa Dunn and Brian Fultz and aspiring candidate Tony Hauserman. We're going to hear from each of these candidates, and 2 for the state legislature and 3 for the Sedona City Council. And then we will have a Q&A session for about 25 minutes or so. And then we will have a discussion about home rule, led by DORR board member Lynn Grigg. Lynn does all of our graphics at DORR, all the beautiful things you see that we put out that make us look so cool.
Behind you, the one behind you is gorgeous.
Yes, yeah, all that stuff. This is coming out of her brain. So
You have T-shirts like that, please. Good.
we can have t-shirts like that. That's a great idea. So that's the plan for today. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Brian Fultz, who is running for Mayor Sedona. And then we'll have City Councilor Melissa Dunn and then Tony Hauserman. And then we will switch to the other side of the aisle with Christine Dargon and Sandy Zalecki. They will tell you about themselves and why they're running and what they hope to achieve. So thank you.
Ellen, before you start,
Yes.
political signs are now allowed.
Oh, they are?
Yes. They are.
Okay. For people that have not heard that, people
They
that are
are.
online.
They are as of May 11th. So if anybody wants to put a sign on their property, can do that.
Anybody who wants to put a sign on their private property may do that. Okay, thank you. Ryan.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Alan. I think you could just campaign for all of us. Fuzzy that, I hope I, merit that here as I share some words with you all today. So, in Sedona, there's never a shortage of topics that we can be concerned about. And when I think about trying to distill all that down and get it to even just one word, I think about the word community. And what I want to do is just kind of unpack that a little bit. I think, Ellen, you talked about how, the rage at a national level is a big deal, and it continues to trickle its way down even to a local level. People are angry because of short-term rental proliferation and the fact that they've lost friends and neighbors, and whether it's because the house got rented out at a higher price now or because it got converted to a short-term rental, we see loss. And our school system has half of the enrollment that it did 25 years ago, half. And, there's loss that goes with that too. So for me, I want to see us start building back community and building it up. Okay. So that's a big priority for me. And I want to unpack that in 5 ways primarily. The first is housing. So again, we know short-term rentals is a problem. What are we going to do about it? Well, on council, I asked, and my colleagues agreed that we actually need a strategy for housing. We were kind of saying, gee, anything that we could build must be good, but I didn't feel like that was resonating in the community. And so now we've got a balanced housing strategy that's being developed. It's baked enough that, we can say, hey, there's 775 units associated with it over a 10-year period, 600 for working families and individual workers, 175 for senior citizens, so that folks that are living here have opportunities to continue to live here as they age and maybe choose to downsize or whatever that might be. It's a combination of rental as well as ownership opportunities. And the so what, when the day is done, at least for me, the so what is the goal is to get 440 more students into the school district over a 10-year time period which would be a 50% increase from where we are, but still would be down 25% from 25 years ago. So it's not an end all be all plan. This is not a, try to find a way to allow anybody who wants to live in Sedona to live here. It's practical, it's pragmatic, it's measured. And I hope that you all will support that as we continue to roll that out in the months ahead. So that's number one. Number two is connection. And just again, we used to have a lot of connection with our next door neighbor, but now they've turned into short-term rental guests. So it's kind of hard to have some of that type of connection. One of the things that we heard when we rolled out our new community conversations program a couple of weeks ago was community calendar. It's hard to find out what's going on, and we need those opportunities to be easier to find for people to stay connected, whether it's, DORR events or any of the many, many nonprofits we have. There's tremendous opportunity to have connection, even though we've lost so many of our friends and neighbors, but we've got to make it easier to find those opportunities to connect. Along those lines, we hear people say, gee, what about festivals? What about more music and arts, culinary, you name it? And I would like to see us have a city manager appointed working group of residents and business owners that work on identifying those additional connection opportunities to try to, again, build back and build up our sense of community and pride in who we are, and that we aren't just a tourist town and we haven't just been overtaken by Airbnb. The third area of interest for me is our business community. We as members of City Council have a responsibility to ensure a healthy business environment, because it is our business environment that actually creates the majority of the tax revenue that pays the bills for the city. We've done, I think, a very good job at the city of bringing in the destination marketing and management organization over the last couple of years. We now have a very measurable and accountable program for how we market and promote tourism, and we are very much focused on it being responsible. Not just, how many more bodies can we get here that maybe buy a t-shirt or a crystal, but who will stay multiple days, who will buy art from our artists, that sort of thing. So I think we need to continue to support our business community. And by the way, a lot of those business owners are our friends and neighbors. They are part of the community. They're not just here to try to make a buck. So I support them. A second part of that is, and maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, but we actually approved a contract with a company called WeCom, and they're going to bring in legitimate high-speed broadband to the city of Sedona over the next couple of years. And that's been one of the barriers to any kind of economic diversification over the years. So I'm hopeful that as that rolls out, we'll actually have the opportunity to talk about what else can Sedona, be known for from an economic perspective besides tourism. Okay. Fourth area is transportation. You can't talk about Sedona without talking about the roads and getting around. And our SIM program has had significant successes. We still have work to do. I'm encouraging our staff to continue to model what the progress is that's been made, but also to make sure we understand the expected value from the investment that we still have in front of us, and that there will be a sufficient return for the millions that we could still spend on improving, our transportation network. A few years ago, people were resistant to the shared use paths, and now we're getting requests for them in their neighborhoods. So I want to see us continue to invest in shared use paths to provide alternative ways to get around, and also those provide community. People see each other on shared use paths and stop and talk. I don't know who the folks are that are on Sanborn. I don't know what the cross street is that put a couple of chairs out at the corner. I love that. I love that. If that's not what community is about, I don't know what is. I just love that every time I see that. Okay?
Okay, go on.
I got one more. Number 5 is public safety. So, wildfire, floods, those are legitimate risks here, and we still have more work to do. We've hired a emergency services coordinator. I'm really excited about what he can do to help make sure we're better prepared. more prepared for possibility of wildfire. And this is a dry year already, so we know it's a real risk. So I look forward to that. I'll close with this. And my friends over here have heard my stump speech enough now that they probably could repeat everything I just shared. So here's the audible for the two of you. I've been thinking about what small town feel, small town character is about, because lots of candidates like to talk about, oh, I want to preserve, maintain Sedona's small town character or charm. What is that? Can anybody define it? I think about it. I proposed the question on my campaign website. What do you think that is? But I had an epiphany last Saturday. My wife, Amy, she and I were out hiking and we came across some tourists. And they weren't lost. We're used to seeing them lost very frequently, especially on the Mescal Trail, because they think they're going to Devil's Bridge. But these folks needed some help, provided them some help, had this lovely conversation for a few minutes. And then I got thinking about, well, what this small town charm, small town character, part of it's how we treat each other. And it occurred to me that in so many instances, we treat our visitors better than we treat each other. Okay. And I want to challenge all of us, myself included, to be thinking about that our small town character, our small town charm isn't just about how the buildings look or how many stories there are or how many people are living here, but how we treat each other. And I know I'm in a friendly room this morning. Last night, we were in a very unfriendly room and there wasn't a lot of small town character or charm. It was how we experience things. So I want to challenge all of us to be better than that, to be respectful of our political opponents, the folks we disagree with, because that is part of our charm and our characters. If we can treat our visitors well, why can't we do the same with our neighbors? So thank you so much. I look forward to answering any questions. And Melissa, you're up.
So my speech is not nearly as smooth. Oh, I'm moving to the middle.
You're on camera.
All right. It's true. So a lot of people have asked me, why are you running again? You're insane, right? And so my answer is that I still have this vision. I'm going to use my cheat sheet. And I have this vision that Sedona is a vibrant, affordable, innovative, artistic, and thriving community with young families, entrepreneurs, artists, seniors, and visitors from across the globe. We are all surrounded and nurtured and inspired by the red rocks of the Coconino National Forest. And I believe in us, and I believe in what we can accomplish together, because only by being together are we Sedona. So that's kind of why I'm doing this when I sat down and thought about what it really meant to me to be doing this. As far as my platform is concerned, it's going to start to sound the same, right? So when I ran 4 years ago, I had 3 pillars. I said it was about community, it was about environment, and it was about accountability. Because I always hold myself accountable and I'm as transparent as I can be. I pretty much say what you see is what you get when it comes to me. So I have the same 3. It hasn't changed. Those are still fundamentally important to us, to the community, and to me. But how we get to them has changed over the last 4 years. What we worry about, except for short-term rentals, has changed. So I would like to give you my points around community. We need to improve existing and create new community and neighborhood spaces and places. We need to redefine neighborhood through neighborhood connections. We need to foster neighborhood and townwide gatherings through community calendar. We need to stabilize our population through the attraction and the retention of families. Otherwise, we're going to age out. This is going to become a resort, retirement, and second home community. Okay? We need to promote affordable starter homes, creating an affordability cycle. And let me explain what that means. So when we were on the dais talking about a balanced housing plan, I said those studios in those 1 bedrooms that we're discounting because families can't really live in studios in 1 bedrooms, or they won't want to for long. The fact is, when I came here, I was single. And so a studio was perfect. I could afford it, I could work, whatever. I'm acquiring wealth. Then I go ahead and I meet a partner. Now we want a 1 bedroom, and we have the wealth to get that 1 bedroom. And then we decide to have a child.
And we say, okay, we really need to have at least a 2-bedroom, but we've been acquiring wealth and we can get that 2-bedroom now. And then we say either we have another child or we want more space, right? I want my home office, whatever it might be. I now want a 3-bedroom. And you know what? I want to own it. So now you get a starter home that you can afford. And all the time, remember, there's people coming up behind me, taking those places that I've given up. And all this time, I keep acquiring wealth. Now, we may need to help them because we have right now a down payment program that nobody seems to know about in Sedona, where we will help you get money towards your down payment. We could do things like put some of our land into a land trust. And on that land trust, meaning you can't short-term rent it and you can't turn around and buy it for 500 and then sell it tomorrow for 1.5. That's what land trusts can do. But we could do things like perhaps in Europe, they do a lot of rent to own, where a portion of your rent is applied towards the down payment of owning that home. Lots of things we could be doing. All of that creates this affordability cycle. I mean, I want to foster open dialogue between residents, council, and staff. Last night, all we got was the middle of a 3D next door rant. That was what we experienced last night. And what it said to me was, they just believe no one's listening to them. They just want to be heard. They don't want to be wrong. They just want to be heard. We're trying that with the community conversations. We'll see how that goes. Environment. Taking cars off the road is the only way to reduce traffic. And it also reduces air pollution, noise pollution, impact on our roads. It also reduces commute times and it reduces accidents. And it will improve, in case you've never seen the roundabouts, and it improves quality of life for us. We need to improve our trailhead and on-demand shuttles. We need to make sure those on-demand shuttles are not running on trailhead shuttle time, not Thursday through Sunday, Monday through Sunday. We need for those to be running while we can use them, 9 a.m., maybe to 9 or 10 p.m. So we can go out, have maybe more alcohol than we probably should, and we're not driving, whatever it might be. So we need to do that. That's already been discussed on the dais, and it will continue to be discussed on the dais as soon as we have a new head of transportation and mobility. We need to continue working on keeping Sedona clean and green and sustainable. We need to think about resilience. If there is a fire, how do we survive that as a community? How do we help put it all back together again? Resilience is also about cooling centers, people who cannot afford air conditioning. Where can they go when it's 110 out with their dog or their cat? Where can they be cool? We have spaces we could do this. We just haven't thought about how to get it done. We also need to protect our natural resources, provide a serene and beautiful place to live. It's why we moved here, right? And so what we've been doing on the council is when land has become available that's reasonably priced, that's on the creek, we have purchased it. We have made contract deals with Ambiente Creekside, where we've made them sort of give us land that we can use as an SUP that'll get us close to the creek. And we've asked them to please not damage the creek. So every time this land is available, we have tried to support acquiring it. Last is accountability. Transparency is the key to accountability, right? You can't be accountable if you're not transparent. So we've done the following on council. We authorized 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years, a new enterprise planning, resource planning software system. Okay, so that's how you run a business, that software. And that's going to allow us to have more transparency into what's happening. Along with that, we decided to start a council-initiated performance metrics working group. That will start at the end of May, and it'll be with staff for us to find what are the performance metrics we need as council to make good decisions, because we don't feel we're getting the right data all the time, and for the community as well. We also then said, when that's all up and running, we need to have a professional auditor who's reviewing to make sure that the performance metrics to the projects is actually correct and give us back feedback on what we could do better. Finally, we need to create dashboards and reporting and make that accessible to all of us. Yes, we need to fix our search engine on the website because, yeah, it's really hard. I can't find things, so I get it. So those are the things that I feel are really important for us as a community to focus on, and that's where I think the council needs to be focused. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you to Ellen and DORR for hosting us today and letting us talk. We like to talk. We're running for office, right? I'm Tony Hauserman. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who I am, why I want to run, and what I'd like to see happen if I get elected. Actually, it's what I'd like to see happen whether I get elected or not. So I'm a 26-year resident here of Sedona. I have two kids. I raised them here in Sedona. They went to West Sedona School and Red Rock High School. I've been professionally, I was a naval aviator. I used to fly in F-14s off aircraft carriers. And then I went on to become a airline pilot. And I was an airline pilot for FedEx for 29 years. And I retired last year. And so, you know, gardening, I love. It's a point where I can eat more. Right? Since I moved here, I've been involved in community efforts pretty much from the beginning. When I first moved here, I went to the police department and I volunteered to remove rattlesnakes for residents. And I walked into the office and I said, hey, I'm a biologist. I have focus on herpetology, and I'm sure you guys get calls from residents with snakes in your yard. And I would be happy to take those calls if your officers don't like doing those. And the lady said, don't move. And she gets the police chief and brings the police chief forward. And she's like, tell him what you just told me. So I told him. And he said, yeah, we'd love to have you do that. We can't pay you. And I'm like, no, I don't want any money for it. I just want to save the animals and educate the residents so that they'll be safe living among rattlesnakes. And I said, but I'm going to need a map because I'm new to the area and I don't know where I'm going. So could you give me a map like your officers have? He said, sure, no problem. Gets me a map. And I'm like, and can I have like a blue light that I could put on top of it? And I go fast as I no, you can't have it. You also can't speed either. Whatever. So I did that for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years or so. I also have been involved in coaching our youth for a lot of the years that I've been here. I probably coached for about 12 years. I'm currently the head coach of the high school football program. I coached youth soccer. Also, I helped found Red Rock Youth Football here in Sedona. I volunteered for a couple of city committees. I was on the wastewater effluent disposal committee. And that was interesting because I don't know if you know what that issue is about, but we have all our water goes to the treatment plant. They process it and then what, right? You got to get rid of that water somehow. And so, as you know, we're at the Dells, we spray it aerial. And there had to be better things we could do with that water than just have it evaporate into the air. So first thing we needed to do was turn it into A+ water because it was B+ water at the time. B+ water has restrictions with what you can do with it. Once we got it to A+ water, then we could start doing things like injecting it back into the aquifer to help to replenish the aquifer. There is one injection well now that's functioning, but we need at least two more to try to handle the volume of water that we have. And so we've been spraying A+ water over the Dells right now. We've have one injection well going, and it's in the work to get a couple more. Those are going to take time, but that was part of that effort. And the other city committee that I'm on is the uptown parking. And, you know, with the garage and some of the controversy that has surrounded that, the fact of the matter is parking in uptown is a mess. If you live in uptown and you try to drive down Smith Road, it's a mess when the tourists are here. So getting the tourists into an adequate parking facility like the garage and off those side streets where we can drive on them is kind of the goal of the current committee. I've also been a Rotarian for 16 years here in town. So why do I want to run? You know, it's kind of in my blood. I've been volunteering in various ways since I've been here, and I want to continue. And the fact that I want to jump on the city council right now is really based on the fact of what these guys have done. I think they're doing a good job. The Sedona Motion Project, come on, that's a great thing. It's something we've been talking about the entire 26 years I've been here, right? What does everybody complain about? Traffic, right? Million tourists all over the place. Well, how do you solve that, right? We don't want to eliminate tourists from coming here because, as somebody pointed out the other night, we're all tourists. We're just tourists that never left. So it's not like we're any better or any different. We live here now, but the fact of the matter is we saw the beautiful red rocks. We came here and we thought, oh my God, I got to stay here. So how do we deal with this? So the Sedona in Motion Project is designed to deal with this, and it's a multifaceted approach. It's capital improvements, it's the shared use pathways, and it's the development of our shuttle system. And the shuttle system, you know, all those things cost money. But if you think about the improvements we're already seeing, we just had spring break. And if you talk to local businesses, it was a very successful spring break. There was a lot of tourists here. But if you remember what Cooks Hill was just a couple years ago, with both lanes blocked and long delays coming down, and compare that to what we just saw, was it perfect? No, but it was significantly better. That left lane going down Cooks Hill and people turning onto Forest Road Extension, all of those cars making that left turn are no longer choking the Y off. Now, is the Y flowing perfectly? No, because we still have 3 or 4 million tourists coming here every year. We only have 3 roads coming into the town, and they all converge right at the Y. So we have a geographical problem and a numbers problem. So is it ever going to be perfect? No, but we can keep improving it. And I want to see us continue to improve it. And Ellen's giving me the stop talking, because I could go on for another 15, 20 minutes easily, but I'll shut up. But I support this.
Okay, that was great. Thank you. Thank you. We have 3 excellent candidates. There are 4 openings on this city council.
Uh-oh.
Right.
Somebody do that.
We can vote for these, but there is still going to be an opening. And someone from the other side of the aisle is going to run for that, and we'll take that seat. And that's just something that we have to face, because not that many people are willing to devote their lives to this the way our public servants and candidates have done. So just so you're aware, you know, we're going to say, vote for Brian for mayor, vote for these 2 city council, but you're allowed to vote for 3. Sorry. We're going to switch now to the state legislature. Christine Dargon is running for the LD1, Legislative District 1, State Senate, the Arizona State Senate in Phoenix. Sandy Zalecki is running for the LD1 House of Representatives in Phoenix. They have a huge territory to cover and have been working very hard. So I want to introduce first Christine Dargon, who's running for the Senate, and then we'll hear from Sandy Zalecki, and then we'll take questions.
Ellen, thank you. DORR, thank you. It's good to see many of you again and again. But it's ironic because 17 years ago this week, my mother, my husband, and I came here on vacation. And we came in the dark up from Phoenix. When they were putting all the roundabouts in the village, that was fun. Can I tell you, with all those glow sticks sticking out of the ground? No idea where I was going. But we woke up the next morning and looked outside. And it took my breath away. And fast forward, my husband and I moved here the following February. My brother asks me often, does it get old? I said, never. Every time I drive into Sedona, I still go, oh my God, I live here, even though I live in Rimrock. But to me, this is still all part of my home. Arizona is honestly the first place I've ever lived that I love. That is home. And a little over a year ago, some of my friends, and Melissa, some of you know have heard the same thing. My friends are like, you should run for office. And I'm like, you're out of here. You're serious? And a lot of the things legitimately that Ellen said are significant factors to consider. But I talked to my family, I talked to my friends and was like, I can do this. I have the time. I think I also at that point had the drive, the motivation, and the personality and comfort to stand in front of people and talk. Yes, we love to talk. And then it was, well, why don't you run for, student council for school board or whatever? And I was like, oh, no. If I'm going to run for office, I want Fincham. What I try to say to people is the gentleman currently holding this seat, thank goodness he's doing really nothing detrimental, but he's doing nothing. He's doing absolutely nothing. And aside from his background, which I don't want to spend time on, it appalls me that he is in office representing us. It's funny because how Brian started his speech, to me, my website says, let's unleash Arizona's potential. And that's the word, potential. I think we deserve a lot better. We know the issues, water, education, et cetera. As Brian and the other Melissa and Tony spoke about, the population of Yavapai County is decreasing. The number of people leaving and dying is outnumbering the number of people moving here and being born. We have 1,700 residents per primary care doctor. We have schools closing. The Sedona Charter School closed its middle school last year. American Heritage Academy in Cottonwood, where a friend of mine works, the high school teachers are now going to be teaching 7th through 12th. We deserve better, but we need to make this place an attractive area for people to live. Affordable housing, as you said, access to healthcare, quality education. People are being offered jobs in the area and not taking them because either they can't afford to move here, or they go, wow, I could take a job here where the education system is great, or I could take a job in Arizona if they have kids, and they go, I'm going to go there. These, in my opinion, are solvable issues, but we need somebody who's actually going to work for the people. And in my opinion, my current opponent is not doing that. But in addition, one of the things that appalls me, and I've learned this actually from talking to your mayor, city council folks, I've talked to the mayor of Camp Verde, of Prescott Valley. My opponent is not talking to the elected officials of this district. I am already doing that. I have already been meeting also with the Yavapai Apache Nation. I want to set up these relationships ahead of time so that when I am elected to office, I'm not losing time going, gee, can we set up a meeting so I know what you need? Because some of the issues that Brian and Melissa and Tony brought up are unique to Sedona. Some are not. Some are very much so across the district. But right now, for example, in Chino Valley, we've got the whole issue over the airstrip over there. So to me, taking the time to establish these relationships is vital so that I can listen. As much as we do love to learn, we love to talk. Listening is key because there are issues that are unique that affect some of you that may not affect me out in Rimrock, and vice versa. In Rimrock, we had a corporation come up from Phoenix and drain our lake. Lake Montezuma has no lake. Yeah, don't get me started. So to me, it's running for office isn't about me, it's about us. Representation by the people, for the people. I am the people. I live in Rimrock. I own a small business. My husband and I work really hard to get by. We moved to Rimrock because it was affordable. My house now, I could not afford if my life depended on it. Rimrock. I have a friend who lives on a very short, a lot of you know Kat Gensel. She lives on an outer street that has a number of little like duplexes and such. You could never find a rental in Rimrock because we were the affordable place for people who are, working, for example, in Sedona to come and find housing. There are 3 units available on this like literally short street alone because people are leaving Rimrock because they can't afford it. I'm also working really hard, and I'm very excited to say that I was just endorsed yesterday by the Communication Workers Association of America. Speaking of WECOM, which we have out in Rimrock. We're actually ahead of Sedona on something. Oh my God. Also, the American Federation for State Community and Municipal Employees asked me, I've been endorsed by them, and working with other unions for endorsement. I also this week was endorsed by Equality Arizona, the oldest LGBTQ activism group. They've been here since 1992. Because to me, it is truly about all of us. I've never understood why people have an issue with who somebody else loves. As corny as that sounds, isn't that a good thing? So to me, all of us deserve to have someone who will fight for them, who will take the time to set up the relationships with every community member I possibly can, as well as the organizations. We went out, we did the Verde Valley Fair for 5 days. Yes, that kicked my butt. It was great. Last weekend, we did the Prescott Valley Heritage Days. And tonight, I'm driving to Ashfork for the Ashfork Heritage Days tomorrow. There is no community that is too big or too small. And my goal is to get out and really reach every single community so that they all know they're important. As you can tell, I'm not running this campaign the way most people do, but as people from both sides of the aisle are saying, wow, you're showing up. Yeah, I'm going where the people are so that I can learn what this district needs. And I can tell you with every fiber of my being, the responses we are getting from people are so positive that I truly believe we are going to win this election in November. And that's not just because I'm a candidate, you have to believe that. I cannot begin to tell you, I've even had MAGAs want to volunteer for my campaign, which is really crazy. Especially, one of them, in all fairness, had moved here from Canada and truly believes Canada should become the 51st state. So when we wrote her name down, I was like, Kat, we're not calling her. But I just wanted to let you all know, because I know so much of running is about me. But I want you all to know that with 110% of every ounce of energy that I have, I am determined to win this election for all of us in November and will give it everything I have. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you.
Been here quite a few times, so most of you probably know me by now. But for those who don't, this kind of sums it up. I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, and I'm a veteran. Nothing scares me. Well, I have the scariest person in my life. He's about this tall. He's 6 years old, and he's my grandson. He scares me a little bit sometimes. But other than that, not very much scares me. I spent a few days in Sedona. I'm from Prescott. I spent a few days in Sedona last month. It's a great community. I did some canvassing, got to know some people, had a nice event, and I love Sedona. I think it's very pretty where I live too, because it's 2 feet from a national forest with lots of big trees, but Sedona is a gorgeous place. And I really appreciated all the people. I am a veteran. All right. Do you know that there is a bill before the state legislature to make it against the law for somebody to say they're a veteran when they're not, when they're running for office? That's what we have in our legislature right now. I can show you my DD 214 if you don't believe me, but I am a veteran. I'm not going to lie about that. Yesterday night, they're starting to have the debates on the clean elections for people that are being primary. I listened to one of the Republican ones and I was ready to throw up at the end of it. Okay, one of the guys who's primary, the one that's in office, believes in the lizard people or whatever those things. Remember Marjorie Taylor Greene and the lizard people? He believes that. They were both election deniers. So they think we need to have all kinds of new election, whatever. One of them that is in office, when we're talking about education, was saying that the Republicans will not pass a budget until we withdraw our petition to get the education, the voucher things off the ballot. So if we withdraw that, they will pass a budget because they think we should have more ESA budget. Okay? And then one of them was going on all about woke. He's going to get rid of woke. And some of the stuff about woke has something to do with bathrooms. I don't know what this is, but I was one of the first women to serve in the missile silos in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I had an issue with bathrooms because there weren't any bathrooms for women. So what they would do is they would take the cardboard off the end of a roll of paper towels, they smash it into a triangle, they put vacant men and women on it, and then they tack it to the door of the bathroom. Very high tech. The only problem with this high tech solution were the low tech users. Men. A lot of times they forget. And to their, because they hardly ever saw any women there. So that's probably why they forgot. Now, I had a few embarrassing situations every once in a while, but I never had any problem. Even though I was the only woman they ever saw, I never had any problem with the bathroom. Nobody attacked me in a bathroom. So I don't see what their issue is with bathrooms, okay? Or woke. To me, that is not an issue that we need to deal with. But we do have issues. Number one, we need better legislators than we have there right now. We need people that actually care about real issues. So some of the issues that I'm concerned about, number one, is Christine and I are both running what's called clean elections. So does anybody know what clean elections are? Most everybody does. Okay. So we collected $5 from a bunch of people. We turn it into the state. They have a fund that will fund our campaign. The only thing is we cannot take PAC money and we cannot take corporation money. So I would like to make it so that everybody who runs for a state office has to run clean elections, because that would take some of the money and some of the junk out of the state legislature. Some of the issues I hear about a lot of water. That's a big one, especially down in Prescott. The Little Chino, which is the aquifer, is running out of water. It's receding. Can't tell the Republicans that because water moves, right? That's what Tension believes. Water moves, so we don't have a problem. There has not been any legislation about water in the state of Arizona since 1980. That was the 1980 Groundwater Act, and it made 4 what they call AMAs. So that helps to regulate the water, and Prescott is in one of them. But there's such a hodgepodge of water regulations that something needs to be done because we're in a desert. The other thing is education. We definitely need to bring in those vouchers. Then there's affordable housing, affordable health care. They're taking a lot of money out of Medicaid. Federal government is. We need to do something about that. I was thinking, what do we do? It's going to be difficult for the state to raise money. But if you follow Mondami, well, I can't pronounce his name right, in New York, he wiped out a $12 billion deficit in less than 5 months. He's filled 100,000 potholes in New York, and now they have free childcare. If he can do it, we can do it too. So we need to get out. We have a deficit as far as too many Republicans in this place. So Christine and I need to get out. We need your help getting out. I have a paid organizer now. I'm going to be organizing some things. So if anybody would like to help, let us know. Now we had one in, we had an event in Sedona. Last month, we're having one in Verde Valley, Camp Verde, here next week. So I'll pass out some cards and thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Ellen, for having us. And please just get out and let people know who we are and that we're here and that we do care about the people. We're not, and I don't think either one of us believe in lizard people either, so.
I killed me when I was young.
Aaron?
Thank you all. Let's hear from some questions. What do you have, Ben Shore?
So we addressed it a little bit before, and that is, what do we do about the other candidate? We're gonna have to vote for somebody we don't want to vote for. We don't have to.
You don't have to.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna address. So do we only vote for two candidates for the city council and not vote for a third one? Or do we pick a third one who we think is the best of the worst?
Okay, for me, it says vote for two. Oh, do what I call one shot. You vote for me.
No, this is city council.
City council.
So if I could open it up too, and, so you're allowed to only vote for one, if that's what you wanted to do, right? And the way the voting works, the way I understand it from last time and Kathy, I'm sure will jump in, is your vote is split into thirds, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because you're voting for three. If you don't vote for three, that last third is applied to the two you did vote for. So you, in essence, are giving more weight to the candidates that you vote for, right? So that's how our voting works, basically here. And so if you only voted for one candidate, in essence, all three portions of your vote would go to that one candidate, and that weights them heavier. And so you can end up with what looks like less votes, but actually win because you get a higher percentage of the vote, if that makes sense, right? It's based on the percentage of the vote, not the number of votes. So that's how it works. So if you just voted for the two of us, you're weighting us higher. If you voted for a third, you're weighting that person equally to us. So that's how it works for that. And the mayor, it's a one-shot deal. So he's on his own.
Yeah, and Ben, if you wanted to vote for a third, which, I mean, Melissa just said it really well. It sounds like you're better off to vote for just the two, but if you really want to vote for a third, like, honestly, I don't know who's the best of the worst. I mean, last night was the first night I heard all three of them speak at the same time, and it's not clear to me who's going to be of help to the council.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Lynn and then Michelle.
It's just about the clean election, which is an ideal thing, but the other side has to do the same,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And if they don't, then it doesn't make sense because then you're at a deficit.
Right.
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily, but because for us in our position, we don't get a whole lot of donations, so it's better for us to run clean. But if you make it a law that everybody that runs for a state office has to run clean, then on the other side, they can.
And Linda, to also answer your question, but Fincham already had $1 million in his campaign account. I'd love to know how he did that, but that's okay. And so to me, I knew no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't compete with that. So why try? Now, that doesn't mean, here's my pitch, you still can donate to our campaigns. The maximum you can donate is $220. My postcards are outside. We have links on our website. You can also go through Act Blue. So that's why we're running our campaigns very differently, because what does it take to do these events? A vendor booth fee and gas money. So rather than trying to rent out places and do these elaborate events, we're really doing a boots on the ground attack. And this was something that Sandy and I, ironically enough, had both decided separately from each other, but really developed a very strategic plan on how do you run a campaign on a shoestring budget. So we get about $55,000 from the state. And it doesn't come from taxpayer money. It comes from like speeding tickets and things like that. So go ahead, get speeding, go get caught. It's fine. So, but this was deliberate, because this way, instead of having big fundraising events and asking people for checks, we get to have these conversations instead. So.
Yes, I have two questions if I may. One is very quick for Tony. What did you do with the snakes?
That's a great question. Because it turns out a study was done by a herpetologist in Flagstaff who discovered, and this was new information for all biologists, that rattlesnakes cannot be removed more than 1.2 miles from their capture site or they die. Yeah, so anybody that like drove them 10 miles out to the woods thinking they were doing them a favor, you just killed them.
Because they
So
have their.
the ideal scenario is the shortest distance possible. And so they travel along arroyos. So in the spring, they come out of their den sites. They travel along the arroyos to the peak of summer, and then they turn around and they travel back. And as they travel along those arroyos, they branch out when they pick up game scent. So what I do is I put the snake in a bag. I walk to the nearest arroyo. If it's the first half of summer, I go down the arroyo and release it just far enough that the homeowner can't see me anymore. If it's the second half of the season, I walk up the arroyo and same rule applies. So you want to release them the shortest distance possible, but out of danger.
Yeah, thank you. My second is quite different, but it's sort of for everybody. I'm so glad we have the mayor and so many people here. It's on the matter of housing. And I would like to know, I couldn't make the meeting was it yesterday or yeah. Now I'm kind of glad. But has a solution that would involve work and cleverness, but maybe a lot less money. Has the city ever considered the possibility of them becoming a tenant of available rentals in Sedona? And I speak as someone who made my living renting. I never did furnished. I did unfurnished, long-term. I would have loved to rent the home that I rented, the condo that I rented out to the city and have steady, the city is the tenant. Let the city find the worker that suits their criteria, rent from me, the homeowner, and you vet the people. You make sure they don't wreck the place. You make sure they pay the rent. And I wonder if the city could approach homeowners or landlords, especially landlord homeowners, not the big businesses, and say, we will rent your home, your room, your studio. We will be the tenant. We will pay, a fair amount, has to be a fair amount because property taxes and everything. And we will handle the tenant. Certainly, I don't do it anymore. I'm not in the business anymore. But I did it for about 18 years, 12, 18 years. Yeah, I would have loved to be able to rent a property to the city, and you find the tenant, and you know.
So first of all, on Monday, I don't know how many slots are left there. Oh, sorry. I'm not speaking loud enough? No. I think I'm yelling. On Monday, Tony Allender, who's the community development director, who's doing the strategic housing plan, they're running a think tank from 8 until 4 over at the hub. And they're also then it runs the next day 8 till noon on Tuesday. You have to go up on the city site and register to attend so they know they can have enough seats and stuff. But they're looking for ideas.
And so that would be a marvelous place for you to sort of bring that idea up. I am happy to bring that idea up. One of the other answers to that is Annette, who is the city manager, had been, I don't know where she is in the process, working with people who own Navajo lofts to try and have the city rent one or two of those units for incoming city workers. So they could live there until they found a place. So they would, in essence, be paying the rent themselves, but the city is guaranteeing that there'd be a renter there. So she was working on that idea. I don't know where she is right now in that process, because that is one of the problems the city has, is they cannot, when they have people come, they can't find a place right away or that they can afford.
Yeah.
Right. So she was working on that idea. I don't know where it is. Mary, did you want to say something?
At one time, I thought it existed because they told me if I have a 2-bedroom, I could rent up to $2,500. And I looked at market rate and I could have rented out commercially at $3,600. So I didn't pursue it, but they really had already crunched the numbers.
Yeah, that's rent local. So I think that's the rent local program that you're referring to. So we do have the rent local program. And the idea is that if you're running not a long-term rental, but a short-term rental, and you're not getting the renting that you thought you were going to get, if you're willing to go long-term rent, the city will guarantee you so much money for a year based on the number of bedrooms that you have in the house. So that's the rent local program. And as we get more and more STRs sort of showing up, and now with the VOC, right? Because you lost the argument on whether or not you could, which we lost a long time ago, whether or not you could control the number of short-term rentals, we're going to see more of them. Right. And in case you don't know, the Hilton has 253 short-term rentals in our area. That's to let you know, yeah.
Hotel?
The Hilton Hotel. So if you go up and look for Hilton Homes and Villas, you will find there's about 250 in the Sedona area.
Oh, my God.
Right. And so they have no interest in rent local. They have no interest in long-term rentals, but the small people who own their own properties and aren't getting the money they want, but they want to keep their property. That's what the rent local program is for.
Would the city consider though, taking out a long-term?
I don't know the answer to that. That's why we need to bring that idea forward.
It's
Time for one question. She's been waiting. All right, Barbara and then Jenny, real quick. Now we're going to move to home rule.
Yeah, so there's been a lot about the short-term rental situation. But another thing that I noticed are the ATVs just booming. And also there was talk about economic whatever. And it just is an observation. I don't know for sure, but it seems to me every time there's a small business that is for sale, it becomes an ATV rental. And I just feel that's another really, well, it's something that really bothers me, but anyway, does anybody have any thoughts about?
What's the question?
Well, the question is, it just seems to be booming. It seems like every time
you regulate the number of
ATVs, goes for sale, or a privately owned company, it turns into another ATV rental, and just adding to the pollution and the
environmental wear and tear.
Yes, exactly. So are there thoughts on this or
On
not?
ATV rentals. So there haven't been any new companies in the last few years. There's only 4 or 5.
But more locations.
That's right.
Owned by
Yeah,
the
there's
same
like one
people.
owner that has 3 different locations, even in just the city
Right.
limits.
Right.
Okay.
But is there no end to it? Is there any way of?
So we can't deny a business license based on a category per se. But the one thing that the city did figure out along the way, and that's happened in the last few years, there was not a good enforcement mechanism on the amount of parking that was required. So like Sedona ATV is probably the most visible case out here on 89A where if you drive by, Saturday morning at 6 a.m., you're gonna see like 100+ ATVs all crammed in there. And they have to play a game of Tetris over the course of the day of getting their guests in their vehicles and getting those out and all that. And there's not enough parking by any normal zoning code for what they're doing there. However, that code was loosey-goosey and they're all basically grandfathered in. Anybody new that would want to come along and start an ATV rental business, they would have to adhere to a new code that requires much more parking. So basically, you wouldn't be able to put the numbers of ATV rentals out there that these existing folks have. But in this state, property rights, grandfathered code, all those things protect the status quo. So there's really nothing we can do about those existing businesses. But again, anybody new that wants to get into that space, they're going to have a whole lot more parking. And that by its own nature will limit the number of ATVs they would be able to rent.
Yeah, but we can't stop a new ATV dealer from opening shop. We're not allowed.
I know you need to move things along. I will happily stay if anybody had questions for me after.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to continue the dialogue, but we do want to have the home rule discussion, and that is not usually a quick one. So I'm going to turn things over to Lynn, but our people are still here. And if you have questions, especially if they pertain to anything near home rule, please feel free.
Oh, good. Holly's here, so she can correct it.
I have cheat sheet because before this year, I knew nothing about home rule. I was going to ask this room how many people have heard of home rule, but I can already tell the question is who hasn't heard of home rule? Anybody? No. Okay. Well, it is the state imposed alternative expenditure limitation, or more importantly, it's Proposition 400. Which will be at the bottom of the ballot, noteworthy. So what is it? So in 1980, Arizona voters approved a tax reform package and it was added to the Arizona Constitution. This reform limited what cities could spend in their annual budgets and gave the state the authority to impose a limit to that spending. So home rule, or Proposition 400, is really an alternative spending limit approach that allows the city to make their own budgeting decisions, go figure, based on the actual revenue that we collect. And in Sedona, because we're a tourist town, we don't collect property tax, we collect sales tax and bed taxes. And so this allows the city to consider the actual needs of the city, including visitor population and commercial growth, which the original 1980 tax reform package did not, those criteria were not a factor. And so Sedona has voted for home rule since 1996 for the last 30 years. And only city residents can vote on home rule, but the results of the election affects everybody. I don't live in the city of Sedona, but clearly I live, in Yavapai County, off at Cross Creek Ranch. What happens in the city affects me greatly. So it's incredibly important. And I'm like shocked because, we've been learning about really what would happen without home rule. And literally 60 to 80% of the money that we have already collected from the sales tax and bed taxes would be inaccessible to the city and not be available to benefit the community in any way. And that money would sit in the bank for years. This makes no sense to me. I can't quite figure it out. And so the impact of that really means that critical city services, as well as our local nonprofits, would be severely reduced. this includes, and this blows my mind, street maintenance, police services, infrastructure, drainage improvements. And then if you look at the nonprofits, our incredible community library, the Humane Society, Meals on Wheels, the Recycling Center, arts organization like Sedona Art Center, all of these could be severely threatened and impacted. So the other thing, which, confounds me, is why this is an issue at all. It has no effect on your taxes at all. The original law basically imposed a limit only on spending, not on collecting the money. And so the city of Sedona must vote every 4 years to renew home rule, or to pick, an approach for the budgeting. And surprisingly, in 2022, we approved home rule, but only by 64%, which again kind of blows my mind. So it is incredibly important, that we tell everyone we know how important this is to vote yes on Proposition 400. And again, it's at the bottom of the ballot. And, I was talking with Melissa a little bit at the beginning here. There are alternative methods, but that would be a permanent base adjustment. But, for now, home rule has to pass, because it's going to be horrific otherwise.
Great explanation. Thank you. Who will be against this and why?
Well, that is the question I've been asking. And what I've heard, and I'm sure this group could tell you, people who don't like what the city council is doing, or, some of the choices, they don't like roundy rounds, or, why are we putting a parking structure? I mean, there's always, there's issues. If they have issues with how the money's being spent, they just kind of want to not spend it, where they could go to city council meetings and voice their concerns. Yeah.
I also think sometimes trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, the wording can be very confusing.
Yeah.
And also, I know a concern is that the anticipation of the ballot in November is that it is going to be a bloody nightmare. Because 2 to 3 pages has been a long ballot. They're saying it could be 4 to 5. We are actually planning on trying to host ballot education sessions. But I think that's something that's also really important, is educating people about the wording. Because a lot of times they have double negatives and things, and you read it and go, wait, what am I voting for? So make sure people are voting for what they actually want to vote for.
Can I just point out that some of those, the ballot length that you're talking about is because of the state proposition?
Yes.
Those will be on the November ballot.
Yes.
Home rule is on your July. Very important, July 21st, you'll get your ballots in the mail starting in June.
And we will be doing ads, as Ellen mentioned, and this will be part of our lit drop for those who sign up for that as well. It is incredibly important, like 60 to 80% of the money. And, we're a fairly wealthy city because we have all these tourists. And, we can do a lot of good with that money. All the things that we've been discussing, if we don't have that money, forget it. So home rule. And yes.
So I was just introduced to home rule a few weeks ago, and I've started paying more attention. So when people do complain about salaries and parking and the things they don't like, which is a really easy flashpoint to say, I don't like that either. Then you get someone say, do you have any recommendations on the I know there's nuance, but on on an effective rebuttal to those types of comments?
As far as I'm concerned, if you say to somebody, city services such as street maintenance, police services, infrastructure and drainage, I mean, there may be people who don't necessarily want to fund Meals on Wheels, so the nonprofits, for the people who are against this, I would stick to, your critical city services.
Which would be salaries.
Can I add to that? I think the other thing we have to do is hit them where they live. And one of the things that goes away is transit. So if they're using the on-demand system to get around town or get groceries, or their kids are using it, it's gone, right? Mobility transit's just gone. It's not a required service according to the government, so we don't have to fund it and we wouldn't have any money to fund it. So that's gone. The pool will close, right? Because there will be very little money for Parks and Rec, and we'll probably put that money towards maintenance of existing parks. So everybody who wants a rec center, give it up. There's no rec center. That we're not even going to have that dream of a rec center. For people who say we have too much debt, the only way we can get a rec center is by debt. As a matter of fact, base and even, well, PBA if it's not set right, but base is only 15 million for us. So what will happen in debt, you're allowed to have as much debt as you want. So base encourages debt. And so for people who think we have too much debt now, base is going to create even more debt if we try to do things like street maintenance. We'll just take a loan out and we're going to have to pay for that. So I also think you need to hit people on the services they use that will be gone. And I think making sure that they know that the Community Library of Sedona gets 50% of its operating budget from the city means services that they are taking for granted for themselves and their kids at the library will probably be gone. So all of those things, you have to talk to people where they live and the things that will infect them, because potholes, I don't have any on my street, don't care. Drainage, not an issue, I've got an arroyo. Now I have to worry about snakes. So all of those things, you have to really, those are all very true. The other thing that people are saying is, if you don't have home rule, we will get to determine what will and will not be built, right? We're gonna have, no, that's not how it works. So in May of the following year, when we start base, so first of all, fiscal year 27, set in stone. By the time the 21st comes, we were already started our fiscal year 27, which is July 1st, right? So nothing's going to happen for fiscal year 27, but 28, if you're in base, that May, they're going in 27, they're going to have to spend around $40,000, the city, to run a special election to try and get more money added to the base adjustment, right? So that's what that's going to cost us to do that. You will hear the city say, we need X. They will say, these are the things we think we're going to do with X. It's not a line item veto. You're either going to say yes or no to the amount of money. Because if there's an emergency, we're not doing those things. We're going to put that money towards whatever the emergency is. So all these people who think by voting no, they're going to get control over what does and doesn't happen, not right. That's, and the people who are on the slate say things like, we'll put it on a ballot, we'll have an initiative, not allowed by law, right? The only thing we can do is do what we do, which is send out a budget survey and say, here are the things we'd like to do. Would you like to do them? That's the only thing that we can do. So all of these things that you're hearing, none of that is legal. So it isn't going to happen.
There's one more aspect to.
I'm waiting for Holly to jump in and tell me about it.
100% right.
There's one more aspect about it too, that to be considered, especially in conversations, is you hear people talk about, well, let's just do a PBA, which is a permanent base adjustment. And it's not a bad idea. I mean, basically, if you do a PBA, you don't have to vote on home rule every 4 years, but it's tricky because you have to explain to the citizens what exactly a PBA is, how much it's called a base, but it's really a cap, right? So what would that cap be? Well, you have to bring consensus to that and then vote on that. And
First, you have to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. So, and you can imagine doing that in the same election as home rule. You could have a majority of the citizens here in Sedona want either home rule or a PBA that's functional and would work, and you could split their vote. And a minority could actually win that because of the split vote. So to anyone that wants a PBA, to me, the answer is that's 2 years from now. Right? We can talk about that in an election 2 years from now when we don't have the sort of Damocles hanging over our heads with home rule.
So I would just add in, and it kind of speaks to both of the questions that were asked. Overall, the folks that oppose home rule, they're more angry at council, I think, than anything else. And so they want to use it as, the sort of Damocles over our head. But I really think that this no home rule thing is a false narrative because you spend too much money. Well, we're required to have a balanced budget and we do, and we run a surplus and our reserves are multiple times more than what's statutorily required. And the fact that we have, X number of employees that get paid $100,000 or more, who cares? We're paying market, okay? We're paying market. We're not paying above, we're paying market. What it takes to get quality people to come and work in this city.
To live here.
Yeah,
there's that.
And you know what I would say to somebody who's pushing back on the number of employees or what they get paid? Ask them if they've attended Citizens Academy. I don't know how you cannot attend Citizens Academy and walk out of there and go, oh my gosh, we have such good staff at the city of Sedona. We are so lucky to have people with the credentials, the experience, the attitude, the servant hearts that they have that are willing to come to our little town of 10,000 people and serve us. And those folks get maybe not quite as much mistreatment as we all get as elected, but they get an awful lot. And it's pretty thankless for them too. So we're very fortunate. So I would definitely push back.
I think what we really need is talking points. Let's learn from the
Yes.
Republicans. Bumper sticker. And I think we all should have the same ones over and over again. People in the supermarket, wherever you go, they hear it. And I was wondering if DORR could do workshops, maybe with one city councilor present, to explain to us and then turn it into talking points that we can use every day. And I just want to compliment the city council. I think you do a fabulous job. Our city is the improvements made. I'm so upset every time I watch on Tuesdays the meetings. I can't watch parts of it anymore. And I think it's not only disrespectful, it's getting worse than that. And I start worrying about you guys up there. And last Tuesday, he crossed another line, and it's just getting scary now what people say. And for some people, it's just not being informed on the issues. I have it easy. I can ask my wife, why is this happening? That's in the paper, and she explains it to me. But I think, Tony, I was so impressed with you. In 2 minutes, you explained the garage uptown and the Dells and something else. And this is exactly what we need. There is, and I know you can respond in council for the open session, but is there any way you can be at the beginning of a meeting or at the end, explain all the disinformation that's out there? Or, I know it costs money and wastes paper, but back in New York, once a month, we got a pamphlet from Cuomo. Think about it, what you wish. But it was in everybody's mailbox. I know we can go on your website. I know we can sign up for text updates, but a lot of people don't do that. But if it comes in your mail explaining the issues that everybody fights about and attacks you about, there's an explanation that makes sense to people even about the money that the staff makes. But people don't know it. They hear the other side, the hate and the cruelty as we.
I just want to know, I prompted her on none of that.
Are there home rule workshops that can take place between now and the election? Inviting people from both sides to have a discussion about home rule and to back down some of the misinformation that's being distributed.
There are workshops going on right now that the city has initiated that, but the city's limited to only factual information.
That
Cannot
doesn't go
take a
for us as
position.
elected officials.
Cannot take a position. So there've been probably 10 so far, and several more scheduled for service clubs, for homeowners associations, for various and sundry groups that have requested them. But they're limited. one or more council people go, because we don't have the same restriction, but it gets pretty dicey there. So a different forum would allow for more of a debate. These don't.
And Lynn, you said you're doing a postcard campaign.
We are doing ads, we are doing flyer drops and sending postcards to every registered voter in the city of Sedona.
Yeah.
With this information, which is, it distills it down to with home rule and without home rule. And it does not change your taxes if anyone is worried about that.
This speaks to the efforts that DORR is doing, and thank goodness that DORR is doing it. And as Ellen pointed out, as Lynn pointed out, what happens in Sedona affects the greater area. People come from Rimrock, and want to use, the pickleball courts here, or the pool, or disc golf, or just, shop and dine and whatever. What happens in Sedona affects the whole area. There's no other group though. We're all of us regionally focused on state issues and national issues. There's nobody to do the work on home rule except those of us here in Sedona, because it's only Sedona voters. And it's, it's down here on the totem pole, right, so to speak. So it's incumbent on everybody in this room. I really urge you, beg you, to really be conversant on this issue and talk to all of your neighbors, because it's not going to be in, on the radio. It's not going to be in the Arizona Republic. It's not going to be on what you see. It's such a local issue, but it affects so many. So everybody, please be conversant, talk to your neighbors. And I've gone to probably most of the ones that the city has been going on. I have to say the questions that come in those small groups very much mirror the questions that came here. And one of the ones is, why would somebody be against this? And again, I just want to reinforce that there is a misconception out there that people who are against it are pushing. I think in some cases, knowing that it's a misconception, or, that it will give control back to the individual residents. That is not true. That is not how the budgeting works. And again, just to drive the point home, because I saw a couple of reactions. Yes, this only pertains to spending. It's a spending limitation, not a collecting limitation. That's why the monies still would come in and sit there. That's why you show that graphic again.
Christine's got it.
Your money all locked up in
Yes,
a chain.
exactly.
It's your money to be spent on behalf of making it a better community that we then cannot access, even though it's there. So just wanted, again, it's on the primary ballot. It's Prop 400. It'll be in the last place you look when you get that ballot, but do not miss it, please.
And Mark, your question about, the workshops, June 25th at the SPAC, Chamber of Commerce is supposed to be sponsoring a home rule workshop then. And that one, because it's going to be sponsored by them, it's going to be a pro home rule workshop. So watch for more announcements on that.
Yeah, it's not a SPAC. It's at Mary Fisher.
Oh, it's going to be Mary Fisher?
The one that's SPAC is the candidate forum on the 11th.
Okay.
Can I just mention Al Camello here, who many of us know, has also been working day and night on this issue. He's working with the Chamber of Commerce, and there is a PAC created to help. He's doing lawn signs. Do you want to say anything else about what you're doing?
Well, and actually, one of the prime reasons for coming here today, besides hearing all this great stuff, is we're ready to order our signs. And we're ready to order other marketing materials, and we'll be doing our postcards in the mail right when the ballots come in your mailbox, which will be around the 23rd of June, I think. Right around that same day, maybe in a couple of days beforehand, we'll be hitting every household, not just the registered voters, but literally every household with some hard-hitting messages on home, or specifically home rule. Even though the initiative and the candidates, and we also see that we have 7 people running for office. 3 of them are publicly for home rule. 4 of them won't commit to home rule, and we're going to hold them accountable. If you are not committing to home rule, you're against home rule. You can't hide
behind ambiguous gobbledygook. And so from our perspective, yes, on home rule, vote for these three people is the same mindset or the same action.
Can we get a copy of what you're sending out?
Well, yes, and I brought it with me as a proof. I haven't printed anything because I know it's got to wander through DORR first, or I'm shooting myself in the foot.
So I was just, you know, people are asking why people would be against it. So I'm for home rule because I don't think we should blow it up. However, I think a PBA should have been on the ballot 2 years ago. And I think a PBA would pacify all the people who are against home rule because they would feel that we're not operating on a budget from 46 years ago. You know, I think that's where a lot of the problem is. And I don't understand why that hasn't been addressed already. I think it's long overdue. We can't operate on a budget from 1980. We spent every 4 years money putting it on the ballot again. And if we change the PBA, it can be revisited in 10 years if it's not right or it's not enough, or in 2 years again.
So, you know, PBA was on the ballot.
When was it?
I think it's 2018.
2018.
And
that was in the first year.
Confusing.
And I probably did not vote here.
Well, so here was the issue at that point. Tony mentioned that PBA is a cap. Well, it's could be either a cap or a floor. And the PBA that was on the ballot was a floor. So instead of being $15.5 million as the spending limit, it was 35 million, which still would not have satisfied all the needs and the spending that we currently do. So the last time that the council discussed this, there was, and that was before we were on council, they couldn't agree on whether it should be a cap or a floor. So they didn't do anything. And I think we do have to have that discussion about what it is. And people were concerned if our budget is around $100 million, half of which is capital and the rest is operating. PBAs are supposed to last for, it's called permanent, but you can have another vote and change it. But you have to look at, it should provide for you spending authority over a period of time, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, some period of time. And at that point, they were concerned that it would seem too large. Like there's a city in Arizona, the PBA is $1 billion. They will never have to have another vote again. It's not the city of Phoenix, it's a smaller city. So they were concerned about the number being so large that people would go, whoa. Because if you're projecting it out for a period of time, then you have to look at what even if you just use a small increase, like the cost of living increase, it's still going to be a large number. So we need to workshop that. And I think that this council is committed to really studying it and looking towards 2028 to have that on the ballot. Al?
And as I understand it, all three candidates are in favor of, for possibly in 2028, a PBA could be on the ballot to address just what you're saying. So maybe we could make this home rule thing go away.
Correct. And our neighbors, you know, Cottonwood, Clarksdale, they all have PBA. And I talked to the mayors and they said, we had to do it because we couldn't deal with this 4-year cycle. George.
Yeah, there's only one reason in the world to change the way we budget. And that's because every 4 years we have to vote on budgeting the right way.
Yeah.
There, it is, we spend $100 million on ourselves of our money. And now somebody wants to say, no, you shall spend only 15 million. It's a magnificently terrible idea.
Yes.
Or the alternative, if I say 7% for 10 years, that's double. So now we say $200 million, you put that in front of people and they'll freak out.
That was.
So the optimal solution, honest to God, is to just put up with the damn home rule thing every year. And spend the money that we have, because dear God, we need to spend that money on the things that I happen to think, by the way, my appropriate title is Melissa Dunn's husband. She, Brian, Holly, Kathy, Derek, have done a magnificent job, I think, of being under budget every year. And then adding that under budget amount
To a reserve.
to our reserves, which are above what's required. What the hell more?
See, that's a great talking point.
Nobody knows that. And letting your elected officials actually do their job.
Exactly right. We elect them, hire them to do a job, and then we say, well, don't do much.
Tie their hands.
But there's no good reason, there is no good reason whatsoever to go back to the 1980s number of 15. There is only one decent reason to do a PBA, and that's so you don't have to deal with the pain every 4 years. But the optimal solution, somebody said, hey, look, you can go back after a couple of years. That's a couple of years of underspending. Can you imagine what 3 years or 4 years of underspending in Sedona would look like? I can. It's pretty bad.
But if you properly educate your residents, hopefully then this doesn't have to be a pain every 4 years. You just need to educate the new people.
That's fair. 63%. 63% is what passes for a landslide.
Al will give our closing message. Yes, Al.
I think one core issue. The PBA in 2018, which was 35 million.
Yeah.
Was promoted by the same people that are promoting no on home rule right now. Okay, it's the same people with the same mind, with the same budget, by the way. They can spend so much money on campaigning that you would think that they live next door to you or something. I mean, it demonstrates that the anti-government sentiment, the same thing that put this gentleman in the White House, is in play in this anti-home rule kind of mindset. It's the same part of thinking. And so home rule passes all the time because logic is on the side of it until somebody that's really good at marketing figures out how to break through that logic and gets people out of fear or other emotional response. Well, home rule, I didn't realize it was such a bad thing. We're going to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's always possible unless you're good at selling the positive, logical message.
One very last point, the same people that Al is referring to who are bankrolling the no on home rule are the same people who are endorsing and supporting the slate running against these very fine people. Shut up. Put the pieces together.
Now just one more. I just think this is a great for this room. The candidate who's running against Brian for mayor made a statement last night that there's this political machine in Sedona that needs to be stopped.
Well,
Is that us?
I would say it is. For 12 years, he says, this machine has ruled Sedona and it must stop.
Are you secretly a robot?
All right, that was the final of the final. I want to thank Lynn. I want to thank all of our wonderful candidates. Because I don't know of any other audience that would sit here for this amount of time, over the time we're supposed to end, and listen to this. So everybody's interest in this. I want to tell you, Shelley, our IT person, created this QR code, which will take you right to the site where you can register to sign up for the dance next Friday night. One thing I can tell you, Tony has signed up. There will be no snakes at the Elks Spot. So come and dance and
Allegedly.
your bag. We'll all schmooze, eat, have a good time. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming.